Music Arcade would not exist without a predecessor podcast known as Gathering of Gachas. I've brought it up many times throughout the show, and it has a somewhat mixed place in my heart, as does the game that spawned it, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Recently, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius announced its end of service in the global market, the end of an era. Given that the Music Arcade and associated podcasts and even my stream community was based very heavily in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, we thought we would come together, reunite the old Gathering of Gachas crew for one last hurrah as we take a look at, and retrospective of, and a eulogy for, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Welcome to Music Arcade. Hello everyone, welcome to the Music Arcade. I'm Galen, the Soundguy Firestone, on this very weird and special episode, this Gaiden episode, as Eddie puts it, of Music Arcade.
I am Ranakel, here for the memorial.
I'm Dez. I was a guest a few times on the old podcast.
You were a regular for a little while.
Not very long.
Well, I am Ryan, the RyBred, as well. Good to be back.
And RyBred was also a regular on Gathering of Gachas, and on top of that, you did guest a couple of times on Music Arcade as we talked about FF7 stuff and a couple of concerts we both went to.
I did, didn't I? I completely forgot. I was like, I never was. And then I remembered, yes, I have been on maybe a couple episodes.
Unfortunately, Kite was unable to make it. He had to work, and we tried to get Rye on, but schedules just did not align, unfortunately, and Geister Fuchs, who was also a guest on Gathering Gachas a few times, is sadly sick, but she's here in the Twitch chat. So, FFBE is a game that really kind of was very foundational in a weird way for a lot of our lives, wasn't it?
Yeah, we might as well start with the part where this is how we met.
Yeah.
Like, it feels more central to the story than even how we came into contact with the game itself. And it's... when it comes to our encounter, Galen, it's especially spicy in my opinion.
It was.
Because, yeah, basically our first real contact was when I banned you from a Discord server.
I was being a jerk that day, I will admit that.
I remember that.
Yeah, turns out somebody was being a jerk to a friend of Galen's, and Galen was... defended him.
I took it a little personal. I don't like it when my friends. I don't like it when my friends get attacked. That bothers me.
Yeah, and it was a weird situation where I was on your side, but as a moderator of that server, I couldn't exactly just pretend I saw nothing, and you were being very aggressive.
I was, that's the New Yorker in me coming out. I see someone messing with, I will come out swinging. So no, I
can't confirm. I was there that day.
Yeah, it should be obvious given how long we've known each other and worked together that I hold no grudges about this. You were completely right. Like, clearly, no problem here.
Yeah, and so like I went to you and I talked to you instead of just pressing the button to share my feelings on the whole situation, and even at the time, you were like, yeah, I, if this happened again, I would do it again, but I understand where you're coming from. And honestly, if that was the part that I remember the most, that if this is making me this worked up, maybe I do need the time out to chill out a little bit about this. And so you offered soon after for me to have a look at your smaller sized, humble, close-knit community. And I say, sure, why not? At the time, honestly, I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to join in for a couple of days, take a look around, be polite about it, and then I'll silently sunset this weirdo's Discord server. Turns out I'm still there like 6 years later, so...
Yeah, somehow that worked out. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah.
And then, Ryan, I met you in person before anything else because we met through Elytra, a mutual friend of the stream who was at the time the community manager of FFBE. And we met at one of her meetups, and we just sort of were simpatico, I guess, and just got along.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because we're fellow long hairs or something, but yeah, we met up and we talked at this event. I believe it was like a post-Comic-Con meetup, and at the time I was living in San Diego, and yeah, you were in LA, but did you come there just for that, or did you actually go to Comic-Con beforehand?
I've never been to Comic-Con in my life. I would have probably driven down just for that.
Nice. Then, yes,
that sounds right,
you drove down. Yeah, so that was super fun. Yeah, we met in person, and I think at first, for a little bit, I was just, I would just DM you on Twitter. I didn't even have Discord at the time when we met, so we would just talk over Twitter occasionally until finally I joined Discord. And I do remember not having Twitter, because I remember meeting up, not Twitter, but at Discord, because I remember at the first FFBE Fan Festa, seeing you kind of messaging in Discord, but like not really knowing what that was.
Nice. And then,
interesting.
Dez, I knew you from before the game, but we both had quite a few experiences of the game together as well.
Correct.
Yeah,
I don't remember even how I found FFBE. Maybe it might have been through you. I don't know. You might have mentioned this game you were playing.
That's possible.
I can't remember, but yeah, I played it for a few years, and then I was like, I think I'm done with the game. So I did stop a while before the game ended, but it was fun while I was playing it.
Yeah, we all did. Like, I think I was the one that played it the longest, ultimately, and it still ended, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But let's turn this around and discuss how we found out about the game in the first place. What drew us to it?
I'm just sort of a fanboy, is the real answer. I don't remember how exactly I got involved in it. It's like, oh, this is a cool Final Fantasy game. It's got the old characters I like. Let's play it for a while.
Ah, interesting, because what appealed to me was more that it had this original story with also the characters from the named series, the numbered series, coming in as guests, but it had its own original cast, its own original characters with explorable cities, explorable dungeons. So I checked it out, I got curious, I installed it, and then it killed my phone, and I stopped, and I didn't reinstall it for a year.
How did it kill your phone? Did it kill the battery, or what happened?
It overheated during the installation.
During the installation?
Oh, during it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you didn't even actually get to play it?
No, I got information on who are the top tiers, who to roll for, and then I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I do remember when I first got the game, the phone that I had, even when I had it plugged into the charger, my battery would still go down by about 1% a minute.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that game was not very well optimized for batteries, and I guess batteries just weren't quite as good back then either.
Yeah,
No.
Exactly. But, so it claimed a victim, and I thought I wouldn't return to it, but what made me return to it and stick to it was the Nier Automata collab, which was a novelty at the time, before Yoko Taro decided he wanted even more money.
I think that was always his stance, but no one believed him. That's the problem with Taro
Exactly.
Yoko. It's that he's just such a troll, no one knows what to actually think.
Exactly.
Yeah. On my end, it was kind of similar to Rana, and even Galen. Really, Galen, the fanboy in me. If it has Final Fantasy in the name, I'm gonna eat it up. I'll try anything out that has Final Fantasy in the name, and just being able to go back, and especially me being a huge Cloud fanboy, and knowing that he was probably going to be in there at some point, and any opportunity to play as Cloud in any game. So that's where I started, and then just seeing that, like, wow, this has like a really great original story, and being at that point in my life, I was on the go a lot, so I didn't have a lot of time to sit down at consoles and play. So just the aspect of it being mobile and me being able to play this anywhere and stop playing at any point in time really drew me in and got me started with the game. And then as we know, the community kept me. Yeah.
It's fun with the pacing because, you can play it for just short bursts, and then there were horror stories of people that spent like 11 hours fighting Aigaon in continue playthrough.
Oh,
I did
goodness.
that. I wasn't 11 hours, but I actually, during a fight with, I forget who, I was using a really unoptimized team. I think it was the big robot that was the first like real boss we were up against.
Yeah, Aigaon.
Yeah,
Gaiden,
that one.
yep.
I actually fell asleep mid-fight and woke up 4 hours later to finish it.
No. That's
Incredible.
That was before I started streaming it. So that should tell you the level of balance in that game. You were either overpowered or you had fights like that.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
did get a little bit better eventually. But honestly, one of the things I haven't felt and found in any of the games, and in particular gacha games I've played since then, are these real challenge bosses without any set timer or anything like that, when you can really sink your teeth in and really test the limits of teams that you can have.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the game's strengths.
I definitely agree. The most of my memories of the game were the boss fights, and were like streaming them and trying to figure them out.
Yeah, especially when they
had the
had
boss
such
fights.
cool designs as like the 12 sealed monsters. I don't remember what the name of the series
Yeah,
they were.
that was the
Chamber of Arms.
But
There it is.
Sorry.
Chamber of Arms.
Chamber
Yeah.
of Arms.
Oh yeah, exactly that one. Yeah, those were so cool designs with great music.
Yeah.
And they were fun to kind of bash your head against for a while.
Bash your head
Yeah.
against them? We did.
Oh, we did.
Sure did. Yeah, that's actually, now that I think about it again, like I was a real casual player and just played for fun until I think it was that first like multi-wave boss fight where I just like really had to like put in a lot of time and effort to beating it, and once I kind of did that, I was like, oh man, I was hooked.
Yeah, especially since the rewards for these fights were really good and really helped your chances on other fights.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
a
they
whole
did really
loop
good at
of
that, of
hooking
having
you
good
up.
rewards.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Des was
Yeah,
saying they're
like-
really good at having good rewards.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of carried over between characters, but oftentimes, like, you didn't see, say, a 200 katana with 130 attack and said, yeah, that's made for exactly this character and no one else. Because so many characters have different weapons they can use, different skills they can use, and so the characters roll around, but the weapons, the equipment passes between characters like that. So there's this kind of two-track progression, on one side being from your achievements, and on the other from time sunk in the game, and time spent in the real world, and resources spent from the gacha pools.
And then there's crazy people like me who downloads emulators just to trust farm for ages.
I mean,
That would run that
you
overnight.
also, yeah, I mean, there's that, and they've also used to macro the chains.
Yep. Well, I never did
yeah.
that. I found that to be cheating personally. I'm like, no, I want to hit buttons myself. Like, if I'm not playing the game, why am I playing the game?
I
Yeah.
actually found, like, I could do reasonably well at chaining without the macros.
Yes,
Yeah, me
same.
too. I never
It's-
understood why people needed it.
I mean, some of the chains were pretty fiddly or frame
That's true.
perfect, but they got way better when they standardized, like there was the Absolute Mirror of Equity family, the Divine Ruination family, and all that.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, all
chain
of
families
those.
were just such part of the strat.
Yeah.
You had to make sure you had a character that had the same chainer. I think they even released some equipment later that had like chaining abilities on them.
They did.
Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty late.
Yeah, that was later
That
on.
was
Yeah, it
probably
was kind of
close to
unfortunate
when I
when you had a
finished.
character. Sorry.
You go ahead.
Oh, no, it was unfortunate when you get a character who, like, you really like, but he didn't have the right chaining family, or she didn't have the right chaining family, and then you're like, well, when am I going to use them?
Yeah.
I find myself repeating this behavior of Archetypes a lot, but occasionally I would find a character who I just like and I would brute force to make work.
Oh, yeah.
Again, how I played with Shantoto for so many times.
Yup.
Oh, I
Yep.
remember you and
Look.
Shantoto.
She throws a moon at people. I'm going to try to make her fit.
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. You
and
want
the-
them to meet a horrible fate, which is totally a different franchise, and yet I'm going to say it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then I made my challenge videos where I would just use, like, a team like the Four Fiends who had, like, absolute zero
Oh, yeah.
actual synergy
Oh,
to
yeah.
beat bosses, and those were fun.
Oh, yeah. I love doing stuff like that. I feel like chaining actually kind of ruined the game, as weird as that is. It became such a central mechanic that you couldn't really just go with what you wanted.
Yeah, your
you
team
couldn't
didn't
ignore it.
automatically work.
Yeah,
I don't know,
you couldn't ignore the chaining.
Yeah. There's so much about FFBE as a game that I find myself looking back on and going, really? I liked this at some point? And I don't want to feel too disparaging on it, because it was such an important part of my life, but at the same time, like, obviously the gacha was extremely predatory.
Oh, yeah.
Not as predatory
Yeah,
as
even
some,
more
there's
so
definitely
later
worse,
on.
but...
I mean, it was pretty standard, and then they went... I feel the predatory push that really pushed it over the edge was the amount of duplicates on a lower rarity that New Visions demanded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting for me who went from, like, when I first started playing, like, income-wise, like, I had to be free-to-play. So I had a lot of fun as that, as a free-to-play, and then mostly free-to-play. But at some point, I started advancing in my career and did have the money to pull some of these units and would kind of get into that. And my enjoyment plummeted. It was like, okay, I can get the units I want now, but I'm actually having less fun because the pulling aspect just,
Yeah.
ugh.
And Geister the
I
chat
don't
just
even
said
know
something.
why.
Yeah, Geister the chat just said something very relevant. In the start, the Rainbow Crystal could give you a non-rainbow character, so there was that too.
Yeah, you could have a 5-star easily.
Yeah,
I
forgot
remember that
about
happening.
that.
That sucked when it happened.
that was not fun.
And that wasn't the only terrible part of real early FFBE. Remember there were crafting times for items.
Oh, man.
Oh yes, I do remember.
Oh,
that.
don't remind
no.
me about that. That was the worst.
Yeah, wasn't there that one event where, like, you needed to craft specifically a whole bunch of
The mug
items?
cakes.
The mog cakes. And I'm like, I'm waking up
Yeah.
every 2 hours, setting more mog cakes to go, and then going back to sleep. Oh, I remember that. That was hell.
Yeah, it was. I think this was kind of the trigger point for them changing that system.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that was at a bit of a transition point in the few development the gacha spaces got, where waiting times were more of the norm at the time of launch. It was 2016 still. And
That's true. Yeah.
paying to stop the wait or just having to deal with the wait became less common in the gacha space in the years after that. But that was kind of the inflection point, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was FFBE was one of the like early gachas when like, and I think they were kind of modeled after games like Farmville and stuff in those ways where there's a lot of wait times between doing things, right?
Yeah, and I don't remember if that or Clash of Clans came first, but that has that model too, I believe.
I will say one thing that FFBE got very right was the music. And I only ever got the first soundtrack CD. I have never managed to source the second or beyond. But, I mean, this is still Music Arcade. We got to talk about the music a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But those were some good tunes. Remind me, this is the same composer that did Wild Arms, right, Rana? You were the one who informed me of that?
Yeah, Noriyasu Agamatsu.
Yep, that sounds right.
And I knew him not from Wild Arms, but from Chaos Wings, that mobile game Square Enix published, where they just sold the game for like $12-13, and everybody was up in arms about how that was an unacceptable price to pay, and they much more want free-to-play games because that's the norm. Oh, how the tables have turned on this discussion these days.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, no. Chaos Wings was a pretty solid RPG, and it had some very great music themes, and then they did like a couple other games in the series, and this apparently got him enough in the Square Enix graces that he stuck with FFBE.
And
I'm very happy for that because his work is pretty great. Like,
yeah,
just the dual theme is pretty memorable as far as battle themes go.
During the big fan festa in the Long Beach, I think it was the convention center, Long Beach something, they actually put on concerts, 2 different concerts of that music. And I'm like, I'm listening to a concert for a gacha game. In 2024, that's maybe not the most uncommon thing in the universe. Like, obviously, Arknights is a massive music background as well. But in 2018, that was kind of massive, especially on U.S. soil.
Yeah, I'd go as far as to say that they kind of opened the way for other games to go with that kind of route.
That's arguable. Yeah, I mean, they may have been the first ones, and that was a great concert. I was blown away.
Oh, yeah.
When I was seeing that live with Galen. It was like, wow, it's so awesome.
Like, I imagine in Japan territory specifically, there's plenty of other games that did that, especially the very idol-centric rhythm games. I can't imagine they don't do a lot of concerts there.
Sure.
But on the global market, yeah, that's not really a thing before that, as far as I know, in the mobile space.
Yeah, Hoyoverse has multiple concerts each year. It's getting mainstream. Yeah, again, this is 2024 where such a thing can make that make sense. 2018, exactly. This was a huge departure from the norm. I'm just going to go ahead and tell this story and get it off my chest. I was accused by someone in a Discord server, I don't remember if it was mine or another one, of having a crush on the lead violinist of the FFBE concerts. I am not so proud to admit that may have been accurate.
Hey, you know what?
Good for you. Good for you.
Look, cute, talented, musical. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And FFBE music, I still listen to the soundtrack sometimes, like online. I especially prefer, for those that haven't heard it, they have a lo-fi one that's on the Square Enix YouTube page. There's like a lo-fi.
I remember
FFBE
they did a cooperation
division.
album.
Yeah, I wish, as a vinyl aficionado, I wish they'd put that on vinyl. I would buy that in a second.
No, Ryan, vinyl,
great.
why? Oh, no.
I knew that was coming as soon as you said that, Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, have I taught you nothing?
It's not about the quality. It's about the vibe.
All right, fine. At least you admit it's not about the quality. I'll live.
Oh, come on. Nobody. I did. I remember one time joking to you that it was the highest quality music, and you were like, "No, it's not." Yeah, I know. It's not about the quality, but it's yeah, it's fun. I love vinyls. It's physical media, and it's real physical media because them boys huge.
It is very huge. I have exactly one vinyl. It was sent to me by mistake. I ordered a Blu-ray. They sent me a different thing. It takes up most of the top of my bookshelf. It's huge.
And Galen hates it.
I would hate it.
If you don't want it, I'll take it.
I'm not giving you my special rare near vinyl collection. That's not happening. I want to get that signed by Keiji Okabe, Taro Yoko, and Amy Evans one day.
Nice.
I didn't mean to get it, but now that I have it, I'm keeping it. Like, no, you're not taking it from me.
Yeah. There you go.
Those festas were pretty wild. Like, it's like the only convention that I ever really have gone to myself. And again, I met Ryan there, and I met several other members of the community there. Including the person who did my artwork and emotes for my stream, who seems to have fallen off the internet. I haven't seen her in years. Last time I spoke to her was 2020, towards the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah,
I haven't.
My understanding is that she basically got banned off on internet presence and kind of fell off any public presence there, but still kept active in other domains. And I still very much have fond memories of our contacts. I acted as a mod on her server, and there was even a time where she traveled to France and we get to meet in person.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of that. That was right before the pandemic, I think. And
that's how I got the FFB Global Community pin, because she got it from Elytra, with the purpose to give it to me at that meeting. And so this baby sure traveled, huh? But it's there, and I treasure it all the more.
You know, it says a lot. It says a lot about me that I know exactly where this was in my room. But for those of you watching the stream, I got these at the Fan Festa, and these are pins made by her as well. And I actually originated this Citra in particular. It was during one of her streams. She would do a thing where a random raffle winner would get a sketch of their choice, and I got one of a character that I was willing to defend that very few others were, but mostly because I'm a big Samus Aran fan, and she was kind of in that space.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a good sentiment we can share is that as much as they were judges, spies, and the likes, the Veritas were a pretty cool bunch.
They were. One of my favorite parts about the second chapter was the fact that they actually got a quasi-lead role, and you played as them for a lot of it. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked them. That was redeeming about them, and except for Veritas of the Earth, which, like, just such a crazy personality change didn't quite make it for me. Like, I get the whole story of the armor changing them, but he goes from like, I still liked Veritas of the Earth without the armor, but it was very different character.
That was the really self-centered guy with the shield, right?
Yes.
Okay. With the shield with the mirror in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did really like him.
Vega calls. He wants his shtick back.
The one who really liked his looks.
Yeah. Yeah, but one more thing on the Fan Festas, if I may, is that first one I went to, like, just had such a magical feel to it. Like, they really did a great job on, like, the lighting and the music that was kind of in the background and everything. And I went to the one that was a year or so ago, and you could just tell the game was on its way out. It was kind of almost like a desperate, like, last-ditch attempt, or potentially even like a gauge to see, like, what the interest in this was. It was like, I mean, there couldn't have been 50 people in the room.
Oh,
there, and it was
Yeah,
like,
it was
you
a
know,
very...
just like, yeah, it was very small, like crappy little seats to sit in. Yeah, it was kind of sad. I mean, even on my end, who hadn't played the game in years and like knew it was eventually gonna die, was like, ugh.
Yeah,
This is,
and
this is
that's one thing we, I believe, always were pretty clear about on Gathering of Gachas, is that, yeah, these gacha games, they're going to end. The one you're currently playing that you absolutely love, it's going to end, and it's going to disappear. And this happens, at the time this happens to 100% of the games. A little bit less now, because we had like 2 different cases now. 2.
Yeah, Mega Man X Dive and the Animal Crossing one apparently both got like actual offline modes. Oh, 3, because the Castlevania one got put onto Apple Arcade instead.
Oh yeah, right. So
occasionally they can
be
survive.
allowed. Yeah. And in a way, FFB survives through the JP version, because that's still going on.
Yeah, but now we get into like the main discourse of at least what I was still playing. I don't know how that continued. And that is that JP and Global were different games.
Yeah.
And it's like,
sure.
that was a joke at first until it became very, 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 very true. We got our own events. We got our own characters. We got complete revamps of characters and even a different summoning system for a while.
I remember one of the elements was that we had global exclusive characters that gave bonuses to each other, which would have been illegal in Japan because of Kompugacha rules, which means that, which say that you cannot require multiple different characters to get bonuses for a whole character or something like that.
Okay, I gotta talk about global exclusive characters and podcasts, not podcasts, and FanFestas real quick, because here's a story. So, when I was announced that I was going to the Long Beach FanFesta, one of the things you would get as part of that pre-order were a bunch of like feelies, including the backpack that I just showed off, but you would also get a exclusive at the time character. A global exclusive alter of an already global exclusive holiday character.
Right.
And I had one guy who asked me to just use their ticket and then ship them that stuff, including the character, which I did do. And I had to, like, dodge Elytra because I saw her there on Friday during pre-registration, but I had to register again on Saturday. And if she saw me doing that, the gig was up, so I'm like, uh-oh. But then one more thing happened. The next day, I was getting lunch, and I was talking to another friend of mine who I've since lost touch with. He moved to, like, Ohio or something. And he's like, I don't care about this character. I'm like, can I buy you lunch in exchange for that character? And so I got a third copy, and I sent that right to Dez.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm never getting that character because I'm not going to be there. And then Galen got that one for me, so I appreciate that.
That's so weird. Imagine doing region-exclusive stuff for Final Fantasy games and having to deal with I'm going to buy you something if you send me the code in 2024. Wouldn't that be crazy, Galen? Enjoying your flying pig, by the way?
A little bit. I would have preferred the Mountain Zoo, but that's just because the Porksy is not my favorite thing in the universe. Still, I have it, and thank you again for helping me buy that tea.
You're welcome.
The
tea was delicious.
I'm glad. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, there was a mount that was in FF14 that was a collaboration with Gongcha Tea House, a place that is thoroughly cursed in my life. I have never managed to go to one despite actively trying long before this mount was announced. And sure enough, they picked the one bubble tea house that does not exist in Honolulu. We have, like, every other kind imaginable, but this chain, nope. They don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, now what do I do? So, there's a bit of a history of this. But yeah, I forgot his name, Aaron, I think. I bought him lunch, and I sent the code to Dez, and he got himself a fancy character as a result.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was a cool character. I remember that. I was
I
stoked
liked-
about that.
Yeah, I liked, what was her name? Fravia, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fravia.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I
was-
didn't have the first one
Aventures.
either because I was still not like paying much for this game. So I didn't even have the first one. That was the first one I got. It was this exclusive FanFesta one. So that was fun.
Yeah. That Festa was so cool. One of the interesting things about that Festa is that they had an actual like art gallery, but not for official in-game art. They I don't know if they commissioned or they licensed, but someone had done fan art in a very specific style of a whole bunch of characters.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
Yeah, and they actually
I
put up
remember
like
you
a
sharing those, some pics of those.
yeah, and I was like, they need to put this in an art book.
I never understood why they didn't either. Like I would have bought that in a second.
Oh
Like,
yeah, the New York Minute, absolutely.
It's so weird how like they have these other art books and they're like telling you not to take pictures of them either, which of course I know you did. I took pictures of them. Too.
Oh yeah, I wasn't going to listen to that. I want to remember these.
Exactly. They were such great pieces of art. Like why not monetize this from a game that like monetizes everything else?
Right?
The one thing they don't is something that people would love to pay for.
Again,
That
I think
was
it's
odd.
because it was third-party artwork, and there was just contracting issues regarding that I think probably stopped that from happening. But it felt like they were heading in that direction. They were putting it up as a quasi-museum.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. And that brings back to memory the fine design characters that were also global exclusives. Some of those designs, like the fact that there was a whole marching band of Muggles on the back of a chocobo, or a big behemoth in regal attire as a tank. Those were pretty late additions, but they were pretty
I
sweet.
don't think I got to see those two.
Yeah, no, they were pretty late. There was an earlier batch. I think Malphasie was
Yes,
one of those
she
fine
was.
designs.
I remember her. I remember
girl
Beryl,
with the
Toneberry.
ravens.
Yeah, Beryl.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
Beryl.
Yeah.
Was it Elsarel or something like that? Who the creator, like in the end, hated the way that
Elespirith.
Lesper. Yeah, there you go. The creator hated how they ended up in the game. I met the Malphasie creator who cosplayed as Malphasie at the FanFesta, so that was
Oh,
cool. I
sweet.
still follow her on Twitter and see her art out there sometimes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, those were cool. That was pretty cool to have like fan designed characters, and you know, I think at first a lot of them like weren't great, and then they kind of like fixed them up to be good. Beryl was great. I loved Beryl. I remember
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
being a
And-
great game.
And honestly, this kind of got close to one of the appeals of FFB after the first like year and a half, 2 years, which is that they started pretty bad on the community feedback front, and then after there was like one too many confrontations because they were like monthly at this point.
Yeah.
They turned things around and suddenly got insanely good at
Yeah.
listening to feedback and communicating and everything, while still having extended maintenance every other week, of course.
That
yeah.
game.
If there's something,
Notorious
if
for
there's
extended maintenance.
nothing else I'm going to take in my heart from my memories of FFB, it's that the extended maintenance joke were never old.
Yep. And then the soon trademark.
I still use that one.
Yeah, I still
do
use it in like out of context situations, and nobody knows what I'm talking about, but I don't care.
To be fair, this
I
one is a
use that
bit
often.
more widespread, and I believe it started on Blizzard community forums.
That tracks.
Seems legit.
But it got a bit of a resurgence in FFB when Hiroki answered that question by just showing a t-shirt that had this written on it.
Yep. He embraced it. Embraced it.
Yeah, exactly. That's not his first, sure, we'll make that work kind of decision. I don't know if you've seen, they posted a couple of interesting things on their YouTube channels after the closure announcement.
I have not been paying attention to that.
So first is that they had a chapter of the story that they hadn't published yet because they weren't implemented in-game according to the release cycle, but they had them translated, so they just released them because they had them. So for fans of the story at this point, these were like 3 chapters of the story on top of what they had access to, so that was pretty neat.
Cool.
And there was a final message from the producer, where, among other things, he reminisced on the community, on the game, and even on the story of how he got the hoodie in the first place. Because he got a job at LA and hadn't gone there first, so he assumed it was hot all the time, so he just needed t-shirts on him. And then he got to the interview room and it was chilling, AC pushed to the max. So on the first occasion, he went into a tourist shop and got a gaudy rainbow hoodie from a tourist shop. And then he just kind of winged it when it came to, oh yeah, there's the rainbow crystal and I have a rainbow hoodie. That's intentional, sure.
Sure.
I always thought it was. Wow, that's interesting. I thought Square Enix made it for him.
No.
I like this story so much better than that idea, honestly.
Oh yeah. What they made, I believe, is the red version of the hoodie after the fact.
Well, yeah, because if someone else made it, they would have to. It would be a trademark thing or a copyright thing.
Yeah.
Good times in FFBE. The fun story.
This was a game that holds a very similar place in my own mindscape as Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. As a game, I don't really have much remaining affection for it. It kind of made my life worse as a video game. But it also, much like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth, which is not a gacha at all, for the record, and does not actually negatively impact my life.
Despite the Infinite Wealth name.
Despite that, yes. These two games stand unique in that they gave me a lasting legacy in real life. You guys being chief among them.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to look at a game that gave me something real and tangible as opposed to just a fun video game to play, no matter how good or bad it is. It's hard for me to look at it with extreme negativity, right? Because it's like, oh, my life was, even after the problems the game itself had, everything surrounding it gave me something real and accurate. In Infinite Wealth case, it gave me a great excuse to look around my hometown and really kind of explore my new hometown. And in the case of FFBE, it just gave me a great community and great friends. And it's hard for me to hate on that, despite, you mentioned the Nier collab. I spent $1,000 on 2B, which at the time I convinced myself was totally fine. It was not totally fine. Holy crap, $1,000. What the hell? I was okay with this? Why? That's how bad it infected my brain. I thought that was fine.
Yeah.
The only game since then I've spent that much money on is on a technicality FF14 because of the concert tickets to the thing in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And that's you're not gambling for the chance at the concert. You're actually getting it. And
I'm spending a bunch of money on StubHub, which has its own set of problems, but I'm getting the ticket to go to see the. I actually went. I have an opportunity to do this, but the price is obscene. What do I do? And I actually had this whole long conversation on the Discord about that. I didn't have that conversation for FFBE, and I wish I had. because I was deep into gambling addiction on that one, and I'm glad one person in my friends list, Geister says, one person in my friends list had his message changed after the first cloud banner. 5,000 no cloud, bye. Like,
yikes.
That game hooked
because
you
they
badly.
didn't have step-up banners at the time either. These only came later.
Yep.
So there was never any guarantee you'd get a character.
Yeah. Rough. It was rough. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, the community is why I hung on to this game for dear life. Like, I think a lot of the enjoyment of actually playing the game, like, was gone, like, at least a year, probably more so before. But I was like, well, you know, if I stop playing, then, you know, I have a couple other group chats that I'm in, and, like, I really like these people and care for them, and, you know, what am I still going to talk to them and stuff? So that's why I was really holding on to it. And at the end of the day, I mean, I think in general, their internet chat has its own mental health issues that occurred for me, but still, you know, I'm at least in contact with many of them still that are still out there. But yeah, I mean, the community, I've never had a community like this game gave us, and so that was nice.
Honestly, I took that almost as a requirement, to the point that when I started playing Genshin Impact and played it for like a year, that was the lack of a community was missing, and I actively searched for it instead of just letting it happen. I asked around cosplayers at a convention if they had a place to hang out and have that, and I'm glad eventually I found it thanks to this lore channel I was following that opened a subscriber only server, and I thought this was an ideal way to have a community, but not one large enough that the whole game was there, because you don't get good discussion on multiple thousands of people official servers. So that was a good compromise, and that turned out to be a pretty great idea, where I met a lot of great people too.
Yeah.
So remember, if you're going to hang out with a hobby, whether it's a video game or otherwise, finding a community, while encouraged by the game as a way to support practices that might encourage and worsen behavior that might be dangerous to people with gambling addictions in particular, it's also a great way to just find new people, get new experiences. It's a way to broaden the hobby, in a way. How about we talk a bit about the story?
Is there much to talk about? I never found the story to be particularly compelling, except for a brief part, the latter half of chapter 2.
Huh. Interesting. I did. I thought the story was surprisingly good. At least the first 2 seasons. Season 3 really dropped off for me personally. I didn't care for it one bit. But I found it pretty good. Surprisingly good. It really grabbed my attention and had me kind of playing a lot of times, getting excited for these story updates and all that good stuff. So I was kind of in the opposite end.
I think what was interesting in that part was how each season had its very distinct feel. Like season 1, it was a bit of a classic adventure, going through the bad guys in the armor, the mad scientists, and so on, and just adventuring and the likes. And then season 2, they went for something more edgy. They changed the protagonist. They went with that whole Axstar thing, calling him last form, which will never leave my mind either. And went for a very different feel. And then they had the occasion to give Fina her own season as well, and they did, but it was much more sharp between to the point where there was essentially her story which was kind of plodding along, and then flashes without any playable parts on what happened on the world we knew, where things were going down. And yeah, that was a bit of an unfortunate half on her end.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because as a character in herself, she was perfectly fine.
She was probably my favorite of the main trio, but
Yeah.
everything I heard about Chapter 3 made me think that I probably would not enjoy any part of it.
Yeah, I didn't get
How
very
could
far
we
in.
further the characterization of this female character? Oh, I know, a magical kid!
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall, like, that main trio of characters, those first three were like that's where it kind of brings the game forward as it was. And I mean, they were kind of tropes in many ways, but
Sure.
at the same time, their development was pretty well done, and they were pretty well likable, and they were in a way where everybody could have their favorite of the three. And of course, Laswell was my favorite because he's a worm. And yeah,
The long-haired
group.
guy with the katana likes the long-haired guy with the katana. Who'd have guessed?
Yeah, who would have guessed? Yeah, so that was an easy choice for me on my favorite character, and then he was just kind of cool. And either way, yeah, and it helped. I mean, there was good development. I mean, freaking Rain's dad being Veritas of the Dark, and him thinking that he's a piece of junk, and then in the end of the day, he's like, oh, he wasn't that bad after all, or maybe he was kind of bad, but did he have a choice? I don't know.
Yeah, and then there was that whole bloodlines things that kinda stunk, but
It got very silly towards the end of Chapter 2 with that.
what I will say, however, is that the story didn't feel tacked on and an afterthought.
Yeah.
They put up effort to make that happen, and I think we can take that away from them.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
may not have liked the substance of it, but I liked most of the characterizations, with one particular exception that I'm like, please get this guy the hell off of my screen as quickly as
Jake?
possible. Oh, yeah.
I hated Jake with a passion so much. I like would refuse to even. Luckily, he wasn't like a great character in game anyway. But like, I just hated him so much. Even if he was like the meta character, I wouldn't use him. I hate him. Yeah. Jake.
Des, you were saying something?
No, he was not a very likable character for sure. And maybe that was intentional.
He was a creep. And I don't think
Yeah.
it was intentional, because they kept pushing him towards our Sid, and
Yeah.
ugh,
Yeah.
the whole thing just makes my skin crawl.
I
was
repressed
kinda
that
skeevy.
memory of the game. Actually, now you brought it back. I had repressed it to think that all the characters were great. Yeah. Lid was
The
kind of
weird
whack
thing
too.
is that some of the characters, like, they had defined roles even across different versions of the characters. Like, you had Lid, for instance, which kept her role as a breaker over her different appearances, which made combined characters pretty interesting in a cross-role kind of way. And this even applied to the numbered FF characters. In particular, how Lightning was basically the first in line always when some new kind of mechanic happened. New vision, start with a Lightning. 5-star character, 6-star characters, start with a Lightning. New type of, I don't know, animated limit break, Lightning goes first.
I never thought about that, but that is actually very true. They
not wrong.
usually did have her as
No,
like
she-
the guinea pig.
Yeah, there was the precise order. First you start with a Lightning, but it looks overpowered because she introduces a new mechanic, and then you put out a Cloud that does it way better and has a longer shelf life.
You're not wrong. And that's the
Oh,
sad
I hate
part.
that you're not wrong.
I mean, given the pace at which they released content, they had to get formulaic.
Yeah.
which is kind of the cost of those live services game as well. I remember a Warframe documentary touched on that as well and said, yeah, we know about most of the issues about the new player experience and how there could be deep systemic changes we could do to our games, but if we spend dev time on that, that's dev time we can't use in releasing new stuff, and new stuff is what keeps the player base engaged in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. And frankly, like, I think a lot of the time, FFBE, at least in those first 2 seasons, did more right than wrong. They did plenty of wrong, don't get me wrong, but,
yeah.
They did keep me engaged. And while I didn't think much of the plot, the characterizations were largely very strong. And Citra's event in particular, where it kind of goes over her history and why she ended up all twisted up during her Veritas days, really still stands out in my mind as kind of
that was messed up.
Yeah, that was kind of their
that
peak storytelling.
Also
Yep.
It's either that or the story about Shizuru and the whole ninja clans, which
bad too.
Yeah.
I always felt their characterization was their strongest point.
Yeah. And then sometimes they did weird things as well, like at one point they had an event where they had a Colombo XP character named Colondo.
I remember that.
And I was like, you are somebody's very specific pet project.
Probably. Yeah. And then what did they have when they had Elena with all of the like comic book
that was funny.
Name for them
Fundamental Forces.
Yeah. That was interesting.
And then it turned out that someone in the main story was actually the one writing those comics.
Yeah. That was a nice twist.
Yeah, that was the twist. I never got to the conclusion because I had left the game by then, but I think they had already started hinting at that by the time I had stopped, so good time.
Yeah. And the weirder part is that while FFBE is indeed ending service, War of the Visions is still continuing for now and is getting a 2-way collab with FF14.
A 2-way collab? I didn't realize we were getting anything back.
There's going to be outfit for Machery and Mont that you can get in 14.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that part.
Okay, that's kind of tricky. I never played War of the Visions myself, but I remember someone, I think it was you, Rana, who really liked Machery.
She had a pretty solid characterization, good personality, and overall the early part of the main story and the dialogue of War Divisions was really good. I'm not sure it was going anywhere at a satisfactory pace because of the demands of the live service format, but it started pretty solidly.
Yeah.
And especially within the context of TRPG gameplay, which demands more time than the shorter battles of FFBE.
Yep. Yeah, I'm still playing War of the Visions, in fact. And
really?
but I like the story too, and now I'm actually like scared that it's going to end before the conclusion of the story too. I'm like, I gotta know what's going to happen here. Like I do look forward to playing the story, and I think it's pretty solid. I mean, it's not groundbreaking, but in a lot of ways I like it better than the original FFBE story. It's a little bit more mature, just a little bit more, because it's still a JRPG.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think maturity fits a little better. It's I've been trying not to talk about it too much today, other than the obvious comparisons. But that's one of the reasons I've stuck with Arknights, is because it is a very mature game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Des, you've been pretty quiet, and I don't just mean that because your mic is really quiet. Tell us some stories about FFBE. What do you have to say?
I mean, I've just been enjoying kind of y'all reminiscing. Like, the big part of why I enjoyed the game was because of, like you guys mentioned earlier, the community that was around it. And, you got to talk with other people about, your progress in the game, or, how you did different things, and, bounce strats off of each other, or all different kinds of things like that. So that was kind of the most enjoyable part of the game to me, was just talking over, strats and whatnot from doing different fights, and somebody would be like, oh, this team is what I used, or whatever.
Yeah, team building exchanges and advices on, hey, I have these characters, can I tackle this fight now?
Yeah, and if you needed to borrow somebody for a fight, and you didn't have the character, then be like, hey, could you put up this friend unit for me?
There's Sid for like half the game's life almost. No, at least that's what it felt like.
I actually, that we're still doing something similar in Arknights. We're putting up characters for each other when we can, though. Des, in your case and mine, we both have such stacked rosters that there isn't really much we can do for each other.
I mean, sometimes I to be honest, now in Arknights, I don't usually use friend units that much. I usually just go with my own team but occasionally.
It's funny, in Genshin Impact, they just this year introduced a mode where you can share a friend unit. Other than that, all the multiplayer was based on actually being active there, but they added a new mode that lets you share exactly one unit among a cast of like 24 rotating characters. It's a whole thing. Most people hate it, and I'm like, this is my favorite mode in the game somehow.
I just got reminded of the bane of my existence at FFBE, and something that really did not really affected my performance in a great way.
You being reminded me. I think we're going the same way. Go ahead.
My personal nemesis, fixed dice.
That was what I was. That wasn't the trauma that returned to me.
So fixed dice was an item that, despite its name, was actually RNG incarnate, and basically it was used for finishers to get gigantoid numbers as part of a chain, but it's RNG. Sometimes you got the gigantoid numbers, and sometimes you really won't.
Sometimes you do like 1 damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Literally.
And I remember hating this because all of the high-end strategies just were fixed dice, fixed dice, fixed dice, fixed dice, fixed dice. Everyone's using this RNG nightmare, and I'm just like, you guys know me. My opinion of RNG has not really changed since those days.
Yeah, especially since to use it properly, if you didn't get the outcome you wanted, you had to shut down your app and relaunch it from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never even entertained that. I was like, this is too much of a hassle for me.
I just flat out refused to do it. So I ended up creating this almost micro community, so to speak, of people who were helping me figure out strats that didn't involve fixed dice. Or later on, it became Hyo from Chapter 2, Rain's alter ego, who was just, I hated this guy. I'm like, no, I'm not using him.
I liked Hyo, so I did use him, actually. I remember being stoked to, I pulled him off of, no resources. I was like, I remember thinking, I was like, I have exactly enough to do one step, and if I don't get him, I'm screwed. And then I got him. I was like, woo! Let's go, Hyo.
I remember, actually, Ryan, you and I, they were doing a trivia contest. And this was back before we knew for sure that he was Rain, but he was clearly Rain.
Yeah.
And you and I were walking to a coffee place while this trivia contest was going on. We were, watching it on our phones or whatever. And one of the trivia questions is, what's Hyo's limit break called? And I remember going, of course it's this one, because this one has the word Nova in it, and it's Rain, and Rain's thing is Shining Nova or whatever. And sure enough, that was the right answer. I'm like, you guys are not being even remotely coy about this. It's Rain, clearly. Come on.
The biggest one was freaking Axstar's real identity.
Oh, what the hell was that?
That was I was convinced it was Laswell.
Of course!
And then it's like, Rain as well, suckers. I was like, what is going on here?
I know someone who left the game over that.
I have a hard time blaming
Because
him.
they
That's
were-
one of those plot mechanics. It's just like, what possible benefit is there to this?
The lols, literally.
Literally.
Like, how? Oops, all rain. Like every character's rain.
Right?
I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the story Laswell turned out to be Rain in like another dimension.
They were probably going to get there eventually, weren't they?
Probably. Oh man.
No, so the trauma I thought you remembered when we talked a bit earlier about the friend units was, how did they not manage in at least 4 years to get a walk-in friend list refresh?
Oh.
That yes. Arknights fixed that after a while, and we were like, yes, the
Yeah.
big FFBE never
it
had.
can be fixed.
But they just didn't.
I think the
Quality
real
of life
problem
things we never
was
got.
I have an idea of why this is the case. And that why is Facebook. Because for a while, yeah, you had a limited friend list, but if you were attached to Facebook, you could use anyone on your Facebook friend list, regardless of how many it is.
The Facebook integration.
Uh-huh. I have a feeling in my gut the reason they never did a proper refresh was because of that integration would have caused way too many problems.
Yeah, and eventually they opened alternative account linking, but I guess having Facebook integration as the base for the code for the friend list was something nested deep inside the spaghetti.
Spaghetti code go to spaghetti. Like that's one thing I've learned from any video game is sometimes you just can't fix stuff without breaking everything else.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like you have to deal with the one thing that it's like it sucks, but
Yep.
you got to do it.
Yeah. Honestly, one of the things I've looked up and I'm going to go to do after we're done with the recording is that I'm going to look into my old pictures folder and check out some of the pics I made or memes and the likes from back in the days, and I'm going to post them in the room because that's a bit of a time capsule.
Yeah. My favorite one that
Like-
I made was "You Better Deleta This," and it's Deleta with red eyes. Like
I remember that. That one made the rounds.
Probably the best meme of all time I've ever made.
Oh, I remember that dog.
I love Chow so much.
Chow, which was the second magic tank we had after we had a 4-star one that was relevant for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
I
Right.
remember someone. Sorry, this is such a stupid thing. I remember. I think it was like on the game subreddit. And another thing this game gave me was my present like addiction to Reddit. For better or probably for much worse.
I'm glad I never got into any Reddit but this one.
But I remember someone did like Chow's event and did like an abridged comic of it. And literally
remember
this guy's-
that.
Literally, this guy's whole line about Chow was just floof. And even like, no, you will listen to me. I am Veritas of the floof. And for some reason, that just sent me.
Yep. Oh, that was
He
that was
was
cute.
floof.
Yeah, that was.
I remember I didn't like using it because dog. I'm like, I'm canophobic.
Yeah,
Can I use someone
I
else,
remember you
please?
don't like-
I remember
Yeah.
that.
And I
yeah.
never got him.
You didn't. That was that was one where I pulled him off of like the free summon ticket, and I was happy, so happy too.
Oh,
It always
sick.
somehow turned out like the units that I wanted most, I would find a way to get without using too many resources. I had the RNG treated me well. Although the only guy I never got, and I think up to end of service, was the original Veritas of the Dark. Never pulled
Oh,
him,
really?
ever. Nope.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I had multiple copies of so many others, but I'd never pulled a Veritas of the Dark.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yes, there's always the one that gets away.
And
Yeah.
He was one of my favorite characters too.
I don't
But
know
hey,
if
got Chow.
I don't know if FFBE ever did this, but one thing that Arknights is good at is every 6 months they'll release a Selecto ticket where you spend usually $20 or $25 and you get a ticket that literally just buy a character and it'll flat out tell you the ones you don't have. Be like, you don't have these guys. Would you like to pick one of them?
Yeah, there was a choice summon system. I remember that, especially because when they first implemented it, they did it a bit wrong.
Oh, dear.
And so they
I feel like I
basically
remember that
the
drama.
choice ticket was supposed to be for any character who was in the general pool, but they and so that meant that any character whose highlight banner was over was fine to select and pull for. However, they accidentally let one character that just released, which was a Shantoto, I believe, be selectable while she was still up. And when they realized that, they did the worst thing possible, which was to close down the game for a few hours and manually remove the Shantotos for every single player that selected that.
I
remember that
remember
drama.
That
Oh,
was
I-
like
The
such a
outrage was
conspiracy.
nuclear.
I don't remember that. That was... Was I around for this? What the hell?
Everybody. You were. Yes.
I think you were still playing at the
I
time.
have no recollection of this whatsoever. That's terrifying.
Yeah. I think that was the big turning point for... Essentially, this was the last hurrah of when the community feedback was terrible, and after that they started improving drastically. But
I
that
believe
was
that's correct,
the
yes.
absolute bottom of there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that they actually rewound the game, basically. to
Yeah,
take
they
people's
closed
Shantotos
it
away.
down
That.
and everything.
Yeah, no, people were. Everybody was up
Oh,
in arms
yeah.
about that.
Was that the first real instance of torches and Gungnir's?
Oh no,
Yup.
there were other
No,
instances
yeah,
before
that
that,
was
but
much
that
more.
was the biggest.
Yeah.
That one just everybody was like, no, you can't do that. That is crappy business practice. That's a no.
Yeah.
I hate that I don't remember this. I'm angry that I don't remember this.
Oh, people were angrier than you.
I believe that.
Yep. Speaking of torches and Gugnirs, I think is how to say it. Remember when I thought it was
Oh,
pronounced
I was
Gungnir?
correcting you every 4 minutes.
I think I just started saying it that way to spite you at some point.
Probably. Knowing our
Sounds about
relationship.
right. I believe it.
Yeah, Gungur, man. That's what it is. To this day. We have fun.
We do.
So, I think we touched upon that a little bit, but I'm curious and I'm going to ask the question formally. Let's start with gacha games. What gacha games are you playing these days? Because we've all established we're not playing FFBE these days, so... anyone that wants to take it away?
Sure. Just Arknights, and then on a technicality, another free-to-play one on Steam, but I say that because it's totally not actually a gacha game, and I don't spend any money on it, and I have every character, so, like, whatever.
For me, it's just Arknights. Arknights kind of replaced FFBE for me.
Yep. No, I just play War of the Visions. I mean, you can, in some ways, call trading cards gacha games, which I play.
It's
Pokemon
definitely the
a lot.
predecessor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pokemon and Dragon Ball Super Fusion World. But no, other than that, just I think I've tried a couple out here and there, and I just can't get into any of the other ones. They just don't draw me in. I've tried out a couple others, and nope, can't stick to them.
Yeah, and it's a bit weird because over the evolution of the genre, like, the genre evolved very slowly because all of the development team were more busy with regular releases over systemic changes. So it feels like the genre got frozen in time, and there's just tiny leaps that move things forward. One of the most notable one being Genshin, which kind of rewired the gacha space in this way, and I'm still actively playing all three of your games at the moment. Well, that's a bit of a tough pace at times. But especially the latest Zone Zero is a pleasure to play, honestly. And I was on a regular, basically subscription rate for them, but I stopped that and went free to play because between the issue with the current voice actor strike in the video games areas and other issues of representations in the game, I decided that I didn't want to support that monetarily, and honestly was a bit iffy about maintaining that level of a subscription on multiple games. So right now I'm full free to play and enjoying still my time is there, even though some stories can get a bit steely. Currently, Star Rail is dealing with a dream high school getting possessed by magical monkeys.
All right, then.
What? Run that sentence back. Dream high school possessed by magical monkeys?
Yeah. I mean, they're not magical per se. I believe they're probably going to be revealed to be some sort of forced mimetic entity.
Yeah, we'll go with magical for now.
Thank you for the confirmation, Gachas, that I am indeed saying something that is accurate.
Oh, I believed you. I just didn't believe them. Like,
yeah.
What possibly? You know what? I don't even want to say that. Oh, my head hurts. Okay, cool. Good story writing, guys. Right now in Arknights, we're dealing with like major trauma and the war and everyone's history coming back to roost and all of that fun jazz. Like, chapter 14 is really good.
To be fair, we are like 2 patches away from a new planet altogether, so that's a bit of a filler arc, clearly.
Okay.
Definitely different themes, let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Like, even within the Hoyoverse, meanwhile on Genshin, we're having to deal with full-scale military invasion of a faction led by the one you've been searching for since the start of the game. So, different tones. Yet yeah, FFB.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's just one of those things that harbors such a negative but also such a positive reaction in my life in particular, and judging by your guys' stories, it sounds pretty similar all told.
I wouldn't say it's that negative on my end, except for the part where my phone died. But aside from that, sometimes.
That's fair. I mean,
where my mind was going was just, like you said, the looking part of it. Like, the sprite work of this game is still insane.
Oh, it was a very pretty game. The sprites were amazing pretty much throughout, and even most of the CGs were pretty good too.
Like, honestly, I hope the people that worked on those sprites in this project are going to move on to some big-time releases or enjoyable smaller scale project like Square has done sometimes recently with like the Harvestellas and the HD 2D remakes of stuff.
Yeah.
This would fit right in there, and I hope they do, because there's clearly a lot of talented people in the team that worked for the game for those 8 years.
It's one of those things where it's like, this game is such a massive part of our history as a group, as a community, as friends. It's hard not to look at FFBE and believe it to be some kind of failure. It had no shortage of problems, to be sure, including ones I apparently don't even remember, but at the same time, where would my life be without it? That's the question I find myself asking.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy to consider, honestly.
Right?
It
How
is.
many
Yeah,
video
yeah.
games can you say that about, good or bad?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, shoot, you went to
Like-
my wedding.
I went to your wedding.
Galen.
I met you through this game. I stood at your wedding.
Yep. And I'm so grateful for that. So to me, I mean, I would call the game, I think objectively you have to call it a success considering the fact that it lasted for 8 whole years. I mean, there aren't
Which in
too
the
many
gacha
gachas
space
that
is
last.
that's a eternity.
Yeah. And
If
in
nothing
terms of,
else, on us and many other people, it was impactful.
Yeah.
yes.
It definitely had a positive impact on my life. Again, look who I'm talking to right now and the situation by which we're doing it.
Yep. Net positive for me.
And it's like, I look back on how bad my gambling addiction got when playing it, but, I mean, I could also look at it as in, I spent a few $1,000s, but I made great friends? Like, would you spend a few $1,000s to make great friends? I feel like that's a pretty good trade, all told.
It's not about the thousands of dollars spent, but the friends you made along the way.
Yeah.
Normally that meme just annoys me, but in this particular case, it is 100% accurate.
Yeah. Crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Although, if we're going to mention the people that had a part in this experience, I kind of want, as we are reaching the tail end of this discussion, spare a thought for Shelly, which was a community head, which unfortunately left us while the game was still up, and whose presence was like, she was working for them, but she felt like one of us in a way.
Yeah. I actually met her once when she was still just a server person who happened to be a server person who just happened to be really charismatic. And she came to one of Elytra's meetings, and she was just so warm and friendly, and I just called her natural PR because she was, and eventually she was named community head herself. She joined as a server tech. She was a nerd.
Yeah.
And I believe she passed away due to complications from a pregnancy that went wrong, I think, was the proximate cause of that. So my heart goes out to her family and her husband. Losing her was a real shame, even for a game I didn't play anymore.
Gone, but even years after, not forgotten.
No.
Oh, great person. Yeah, I exchanged only a couple words with her probably at the community, the FanFest event, and very nice person, always charismatic, and really helped to carry this game forward in terms of the community. I mean, as we're mentioning, the community is what made it what it was, and she was a huge part of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was one of the foundational blocks that kind of created that link.
Yeah.
That direct way of communication in a way.
Yep. Yeah, so much so. Yeah. Yeah. And also shout out to Elytra, who was the community manager as well.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I met up at one of her community meetups, and she was always really, really good to me too. I mean, she invited me on stream when they had the
I remember that
Star Ocean Anamnesis FFBE collab, and that was always fun. So shout out to Elytra as well for putting in work in the community as well. And you know,
I never got
what
to
it was.
join any of those community events because I lived on the other side of the country. But I mean, I could tell that they were big parts of that.
It's funny, like, at the end of the day, this game was certainly something that left a lot of memories, both through its characters and through the people that were around them.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we're here today, like, why we're making a memorial episode in this instance. Like, I wouldn't do that if I didn't care, and as silly as a game story can get at times, if it can make you care enough a few years later, that's gotta count for something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's about as strong a note to end off on as we wave goodbye to FFBE, but not the friends we made along the way, because you guys are homies, and I don't want to let you all
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and like to formulate a bit more of a thorough conclusion on that, one of the things we've said earlier in Gaiden of Gachas is that the live services in particular, are not going to stay forever.
No.
So, but the experiences, the memories, and the bonds that happens along that way, these are going to outlive the games.
Absolutely. And that's been proven again just by us existing here. So pour one out for FFBE, a game that, again, where would my life at least, and probably ours as a whole, lives be without it?
Too big of a branching path to seriously consider.
That's the craziest part, isn't it? And with that, that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us on this very strange, very special episode. If you have an issue with gambling addiction, there are resources for that. Please look into it. And if you're a fan of FFBE, just let us know and give us your favorite memory in the comments somewhere. I'd love to hear about it.
Enjoying a game should not come at too high a cost, whether financially or when it comes to relationship, because if to support the numbers aspect of the game, you have to break the bonds the game creates, you're losing more than a character that's missing in a list.
Absolutely. I would like to thank Dez and RyBred for coming back from the dead to have this little gathering of Gachas reunion.
Happy to do so.
Of course.
It was
a pleasure.
an absolute pleasure chatting with you up again.
Thank you all for having me on,
been great.
and good luck in everything that's going on in y'all's lives.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Things are going pretty good right now, not gonna lie.
There we go.
And with that, we will see you all for another episode of Music Arcade next time. Have a good one, guys.
I believe next time is going to be Year of the Dragon, actually.
Oh, right, we were going to do that. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
I guess we're doing Year of the Dragon next episode, and then we're back to Music Arcade.
Yeah, but the time after, definitely we're coming back.
Have a good one, everybody. Peace.
See ya.